I paid off their $1.2 million mansion. Then my son-in-law changed the deed. My name is Eleanor Hayes. Everyone calls me Ellie. I'm 68 years old, a retired architect from Boise, Idaho, and 22 months ago, I became a widow. I thought losing my husband David would be the hardest thing I'd ever face, but I was wrong. Because what came after his death was something I never imagined. Discovering that the man I shared 47 years with had quietly built a construction empire worth $1.2 million in cash and properties, all hidden from me. And then watching as my own daughter's husband tried to steal every penny of it. David passed on a Tuesday in March. Heart attack. Instant. Merciful, they said. The world went silent. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the hallway clock, everything seemed louder because his voice was gone. We'd met in 1977 at a construction site. I was fresh out of architecture school, the only woman on the crew. He was the foreman's son, 24 years old, with calloused hands and a smile that made me forget my own name. Our first date was at a diner. He ordered coffee and pie. I ordered the same. We talked for 4 hours about buildings, about creating things that would outlast us. He proposed 6 months later with a ring he'd made himself. Silver band, no diamond. Diamonds are marketing, he said. This is real. For 47 years, we built a life together. Modest, quiet. We drove the same Ford pickup for 15 years. Our house was a 1,200 square foot ranch we'd renovated ourselves. We took one vacation a year, always camping, always somewhere we could hike. David ran Hayes & Sons Construction. I knew the business was steady, enough to pay bills, save a little, help Sarah with college. But I handled the household accounts. He handled the business. That was our arrangement. For 6 weeks after the funeral, I couldn't open his office door. The brass knob felt like a boundary I wasn't ready to cross. Inside were 40 years of his life. Ledgers, blueprints, photographs of buildings he'd constructed across Idaho. The discovery came 8 weeks after the funeral, when I met with his estate attorney, Margaret Klein. Margaret's office was in downtown Boise, 19th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boise River. She'd been David's attorney for 30 years. I'd met her at Christmas parties, but never in a professional capacity. She slid a leather folder across the oak desk. Her eyes were kind, but serious. Ellie, she said, David wanted you to have full control. No trusts, no restrictions, everything in your name. She opened the folder. Inside were deeds, account statements, property appraisals. He left you the company, fully paid equipment, 3 crews, contracts worth $400,000 annually, 4 investment accounts totaling $380,000, 3 rental properties in Meridian, generating $4,800 monthly. The family home, paid off, valued at $420,000. Total liquid and property assets, approximately $1.2 million. I remember gripping the armrests of my chair. My knuckles went white. My breath caught in my throat like I'd been punched. That must be a mistake, I whispered. David we weren't that kind of people. Margaret smiled gently, the way you smile at someone who's about to learn something difficult. He was humble, Mrs. Hayes, but he was also brilliant. He bought those rental properties in 2003 when the market crashed, paid $90,000 each. They're worth $300,000 now. The business? He never took on debt. Every truck, every tool, purchased outright. He invested 15% of every contract into index funds for 40 years. I sat there, staring at numbers that didn't feel real. "Why didn't he tell me?" I asked. Margaret's expression softened. "He did, in a way. There's a letter." She handed me an envelope, my name in David's careful handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. "Ellie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the money while I was alive. Not because I didn't trust you. God knows you're smarter with money than I ever was. But because I knew you'd want to give it away. Help everyone. Fix everyone's problems. I built this so you'd never have to worry. So you could retire, travel, do all those things you put off to support my business. But here's what I need you to understand. Money changes people. Not the person who has it, the people around them. I've seen it 100 times. A man gets a windfall. And suddenly every cousin, every old friend, every neighbor has an emergency only money can fix. Be careful who you tell. Be careful who you trust. I love you. I always have. David. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. My hands were still shaking. I went home trembling, not from greed, but from confusion. I had spent 47 years beside that man, sharing one old truck, one modest house, and a life so simple it bordered on plain. We never flaunted anything. David always said, "Money's just a tool, Ellie. Wave it around, and you'll draw the wrong kind of attention." I didn't know then how prophetic those words would be. Our daughter, Sarah, was 29 when David died. She'd always been sensitive, the kid who cried at sad movies, who brought home stray cats, who believed everyone deserved a second chance. She got her teaching degree, worked at an elementary school, made $42,000 a year, and thought she was rich. She looked like David. Same dark hair, same serious eyes that crinkled when she smiled. But she had my optimism, my belief that people were fundamentally good. 2 months after the funeral, she brought Brandon Cole to Sunday dinner. He was 32, tall, with the kind of effortless charm that makes you feel like you're the most interesting person in the room. Real estate agent. 3 years in Boise after moving from Seattle. Drove a leased BMW. Wore a Rolex that caught the light like a warning, though I didn't see it as a warning then. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, shaking my hand with both of his. "Sarah's told me so much about you. The architecture, the designs you did for the state buildings in the 80s, incredible work." I was flattered. Most people didn't know about my career. I'd retired early to help David with the business. "Please," I said, "call me Ellie." Over pot roast and mashed potatoes, Brandon told stories. How he'd sold $8 million in real estate last year. How the Boise market was exploding. How he'd grown up poor in Tacoma, worked 3 jobs to put himself through college. "I believe in earning what you have," he said, looking at Sarah with what seemed like genuine affection. "No handouts, just hard work." Sarah beamed. She'd always wanted someone ambitious, someone who'd push her to dream bigger. After dinner, as I was clearing plates, Brandon followed me into the kitchen. "Ellie," he said quietly, "I want you to know, I'm serious about Sarah. I know it's only been a few months, but when you know, you know. She's special." I smiled. "She is. And she's been through a lot, losing her father." "I'll take care of her," he said. "I promise." Looking back, I wonder if I heard what I wanted to hear. A man promising to care for my grieving daughter. I didn't hear the calculation in his voice. The way he said, "take care of," like she was a problem to be managed. not a person to be loved. Brandon proposed 4 months later, November, 6 months after David's death. Sarah called me crying. Happy tears, she said. He'd taken her to Table Rock at sunset, gotten down on one knee, presented a 2-carat diamond ring that probably cost more than her yearly salary. "Mom," she said, breathless, "he said he wants to build a life with me, a real life. He's already looking at houses." I felt a flutter of concern. 4 months was fast, but who was I to judge? David had proposed after 6 months, and we'd had 47 good years. "Are you happy?" I asked. "So happy," she said. "He's everything Dad would have wanted for me." The engagement party was at Brandon's condo, a modern high-rise downtown, floor-to-ceiling windows, stainless steel everything. He'd invited 40 people, mostly his clients, other real estate agents, people I didn't know. I brought a bottle of wine and a card. Sarah greeted me at the door in a cocktail dress I'd never seen before. "Brandon bought it for me," she said, spinning. "Isn't it gorgeous?" It was. It was also $800, based on the label I glimpsed when she hung her purse. Halfway through the party, Brandon tapped a knife against his champagne glass. "Everyone, thank you for coming. I want to toast the most important person in my life, Sarah. She's brilliant, beautiful, and way too good for me." Everyone laughed. Sarah blushed. "And I want to toast her mother, Ellie, who raised this incredible woman. Sarah tells me you're the strongest person she knows. I hope I can live up to that example." Everyone clapped. I smiled. But something about the way he looked at me, not at Sarah, at me, made my skin prickle, like he was sizing me up, calculating something. After the party, as I was leaving, Brandon walked me to my car. "Ellie," he said, "I need to ask you something. Man to man. Well, man to woman." He laughed at his own joke. I didn't. "Sarah's mentioned that David left you comfortable. I just want you to know, I'm not after your money. I make my own. But I do want to make sure Sarah's taken care of. That we start our marriage on solid ground." "What are you asking?" I said carefully. "Nothing. Just, if there's ever anything you want to do for us, for Sarah, I want you to know I'd never take advantage. I'm not that kind of guy." It should have been reassuring. Instead, it felt like a preemptive defense. Like he was telling me he wasn't a thief before I'd accused him of stealing. I drove home uneasy, but I told myself I was being paranoid, protective. David's letter echoed in my head. Be careful who you trust. Sarah came to me on a Sunday in January, 3 months before the wedding. We were having coffee in my kitchen, the same table where David and I had eaten breakfast for 40 years. Outside, snow was falling soft and silent. "Mom," she said, not meeting my eyes, "Brandon found our dream house." She pulled out her phone and showed me photos. A modern farmhouse in Eagle, just outside Boise. 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, mountain views, hardwood floors, granite counters, a chef's kitchen Sarah would never use because she couldn't cook. "It's $1.4 million, she said quietly. I nearly choked on my coffee. "Sarah," I said carefully, "that's a lot of house. You make $42,000 a year. Brandon's income is commission-based. That's a huge mortgage." "We can afford it," she said quickly. Brandon ran the numbers. With a 20% down payment, $280,000, the mortgage would be about $6,000 a month. He makes that easily. Some months, he makes $30,000. "Some months," I repeated. "What about the slow months?" She looked down at her coffee. He says real estate is all about momentum. If we have a nice house, we can host clients, network. It's an investment. I knew where this was going. The careful way she was explaining, the defensive tone. You want me to help with the down payment, I said. She looked up, eyes bright with tears. It would be a wedding gift. Brandon said we shouldn't ask, that it's too much. But Mom, this is our forever home, where we'll raise kids, where we'll have Christmas dinners with you. I thought of David, his letter, his warning. But I also thought of Sarah at 5 years old, holding my hand, asking if we could keep every stray dog we found. Sarah at 10, crying because a kid at school didn't have lunch money. Sarah at 16, volunteering at the homeless shelter every Saturday. She wasn't asking for herself. She was asking because Brandon had convinced her this was their dream. What if, I said slowly, I paid it off completely, the full $1.4 million, no mortgage, no debt, just a home. Sarah's eyes went wide. Mom, no, that's too much. We just need... I can afford it, I said. And then, because I needed her to understand, your father left me well provided for. He'd want this. He'd want you to start your marriage without financial stress. Sarah cried. She came around the table and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And in that moment, I felt good, like I was doing what David would have wanted, giving our daughter roots. That evening, Sarah called. Brandon was with her. Ellie, Brandon said, voice thick with emotion. I don't know what to say. You're incredible, the most generous person I've ever met. I promise you, I will take care of Sarah. I will take care of this home. You'll never regret this. I know, I said, but my hand was shaking when I hung up. The closing was on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Brandon said it was fate. We met at the title company, me, Sarah, Brandon, and Margaret Klein, who I'd insisted review everything. The sellers were an older couple relocating to Arizona. They seemed nice, relieved to be selling. I wrote a cashier's check for $1.4 million. The largest check I'd ever written. My hand didn't shake. I'd thought about this for weeks. Margaret had advised me to structure it as a loan, but I'd refused. It's a gift, I told her. Family doesn't loan money. They give it. Margaret's expression was carefully neutral. Then make sure the title reflects that this is Sarah's property too. Joint tenancy with right of survivorship. Both names. Of course, I said. The title officer, a woman named Patricia with reading glasses on a chain, walked us through the documents. Property will be titled to Sarah Cole and Brandon Cole, joint tenants with right of survivorship. Mrs. Hayes is listed as the benefactor for the gift, which will need to be reported for tax purposes but falls under the lifetime gift exemption. I signed. Sarah signed. Brandon signed. Patricia notarized everything, stamped the deed, and smiled. Congratulations. You're homeowners. Brandon shook my hand. Ellie, I don't have words. Take care of my daughter, I said. That's all I ask. Always, he said. After the closing, Margaret pulled me aside in the parking lot. Ellie, she said quietly, I want you to keep the original deed. Put it in a safe, just in case. In case of what? In case anything changes. Divorce, disputes, anything. That deed proves you purchased the property. If something happens, you have standing. I nodded, took the folder she handed me. I didn't think I'd ever need it. The wedding was in May, 3 months after the closing. Sarah wanted simple. Backyard, close friends, a dress from a boutique in downtown Boise. Brandon wanted spectacle. "Babe," he said, I heard this conversation in their kitchen one afternoon. "We have the house. Let's show it off. Garden ceremony, white tent, string quartet. This is our moment." "That costs $100,000, Sarah said. "Your mom will help," Brandon said confidently. Sarah was quiet. Then, "We can't keep asking her." "She offered for the house, didn't she? This is part of the same gift. Starting our life right." Sarah came to me the next day, apologetic, embarrassed. "Mom, I know this is too much to ask." I said yes before she finished. Not because I wanted to spend $120,000 on a wedding, but because I couldn't stand the look in her eyes, like she was disappointing me by asking, disappointing Brandon by hesitating. The wedding was beautiful. I'll give Brandon that. White tent on their property, 200 guests, string quartet playing pachelbel. Sarah wore a lace gown that cost $8,000. Brandon wore Tom Ford and cried during the vows. His toast: "To the woman who gave us everything, Ellie Hayes, the best mother-in-law a man could ask for." Everyone clapped. I raised my glass. But I noticed he never looked at Sarah when he said it. He looked at me. At the reception, one of Brandon's real estate friends, a man named Derek with too much cologne, cornered me at the bar. "You must be proud," he said. "I am," I said. "Brandon's a smart guy. Married up, bought a hell of a house, positioned himself perfectly in this market." He leaned in, conspiratorial. "Between you and me, he told me he'd found the golden goose. Guess he was right." I smiled politely and walked away, but the phrase stayed with me. Golden goose. They honeymooned in Bora Bora, 2 weeks. Overwater bungalow, private beach, $25,000 total. Brandon paid for it, or so he said. Later, I'd find out he'd charged it to a credit card in Sarah's name, one she didn't know existed. While they were gone, I drove past the house. I don't know why. Maybe to see it again. To confirm it was real, this investment I'd made in my daughter's future. The gate was open. A landscaping crew was working. New sod, new trees, a water feature I hadn't seen before. I pulled into the driveway. The crew supervisor, a man in his 50s, waved. "Can I help you?" "I'm Sarah's mother," I said. "Just checking on things." He nodded. "Mr. Cole's putting in some upgrades. This is phase 1. Phase 2 starts next month. Pool, outdoor kitchen, another $200,000. I blinked. "He didn't mention that." "Yeah, he's ambitious. Says he wants this place to be a showpiece. Can't blame him. Market's hot. House like this, fully upgraded, could fetch $1.8 million easy." I drove home slowly. Why would Brandon need to flip the house? Sarah loved it. They'd just moved in. Unless he'd never intended it to be their forever home. Unless it had always been an investment. 2 weeks after the honeymoon, I stopped by unannounced. It was a Sunday afternoon. I'd called Sarah 3 times that week. No answer. Texted. No response. I told myself she was busy, settling into married life. But David's voice in my head. When someone stops calling, pay attention. The gate was locked. New code. I rang the bell. Brandon answered in a silk robe, hair wet. Annoyed. "Ellie," he said flatly. "We're kind of busy." I wanted to check on Sarah. She hasn't been returning my calls. "She's fine. We're just enjoying being newlyweds." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You understand. Can I talk to her? Just for a minute?" "She's in the shower. I'll have her call you." He started to close the door. I put my hand on it. Brandon, is everything okay? His smile vanished. Everything's fine, Ellie. But we need boundaries. You can't just show up whenever you want. This is our home. We need privacy. I bought that home, I said before I could stop myself. His eyes went cold. You gave it to us. As a gift. That means it's ours, not yours. I stepped back. He closed the door. I stood there for a moment, heart pounding. Then I walked to my car. As I was pulling out, I glanced at the garage. The door was open. Inside, leaning against the wall, a for sale by owner sign. I called Margaret Klein the next morning. Can you pull the county records on the house? I asked. Why? Just do it, please. 2 days later, she called me back. Her voice was ice. Ellie, we need to meet. Now. In her office, she spread documents across her desk. Deeds, transfer records, notary stamps. The title was transferred last week, she said. Quitclaim deed. Property is now solely in Brandon Cole's name. Sarah's name was removed. My stomach dropped. How is that possible? Quitclaim deed means one party gives up their ownership rights. It requires both signatures, Sarah's and Brandon's. But here's the problem. She handed me another document. This is the original title, and this is the new quitclaim. Look at Sarah's signature. I looked. The signatures were different, subtly but clearly. Sarah's real signature had a loop in the S. This one didn't. Forgery, Margaret said. And it gets worse. There's a second deed here. One that says you, Eleanor Hayes, transferred your interest in the property to Brandon Cole as a gift, for estate tax purposes. I never signed that. I know, but your signature is on it, also forged. I stared at the documents. My vision blurred. He's stealing it, I whispered. He's stealing the house. And he's doing it legally, on paper. If this goes unchallenged, in 6 months, the statute runs out. The transfers become permanent. I looked up at Margaret. What do? We fight. But Ellie, this is fraud. This is going to get ugly. Are you prepared for that? I thought of Sarah, of David, of 47 years building something real, something good. Yes, I said. I'm prepared. Margaret hired a private investigator. His name was Tom Chen, former FBI, now running his own firm in Boise. We need to prove intent, Tom said in Margaret's conference room. Forgery's one thing, but if we can show premeditation, planning, a pattern of financial manipulation, we turn this into criminal fraud. Tom worked fast. Within a week, he had Brandon's financial records. All public, all legal, all damning. He's $340,000 in debt, Tom said, spreading printouts across the table. Credit cards, personal loans, a default on a condo in Seattle from 2019. His real estate income, nowhere near what he claimed. Last year, he grossed $80,000, not $300,000. He's been living on credit and charm. There's more, Tom continued. He opened 3 credit cards in Sarah's name. Total balance, $87,000. She doesn't know about them. He's been paying minimum payments from a joint account he set up without her knowledge. I felt sick. She has no idea? None. And look at this. Tom pulled up a social media post. Brandon at a poker game 2 months before the wedding. High-stakes game. Buy-in was $10,000. He lost $35,000 that night, according to witnesses I interviewed. Margaret leaned forward. He's a gambling addict? Or just reckless? Either way, he's desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. We need to talk to Sarah, I said. She needs to know. Margaret shook her head. Not yet. If we tip our hand, Brandon will move faster. We need ironclad evidence first. Then we go to her. She's my daughter. And she's in denial, Margaret said gently. Right now, she believes he loves her. If you confront her without proof, she'll defend him. We've seen it 100 times. I hated it, but I knew she was right. What's our next move? I asked. Tom smiled. We install surveillance, legal surveillance. Your property, your right. At 2 a.m. on a Thursday, Tom and I entered the house. We had keys, my keys, from the closing. Legally, I still had a claim to the property since the fraudulent deed hadn't been finalized. The house was dark, silent. Brandon and Sarah were in Coeur d'Alene for the weekend. A work trip, Sarah had texted. Tom installed 3 cameras. One in the foyer chandelier, tiny, invisible unless you knew where to look. One in the kitchen, hidden in a smoke detector. One in Brandon's home office, behind a picture frame. Motion activated, Tom whispered. Streams to a secure server, audio and video. If he makes a single incriminating call, we'll have it. We were out in 20 minutes. No trace we'd been there. 3 nights later, the footage came through. I was in Margaret's office when Tom called. You need to see this, now. He played it on his laptop. Brandon in the kitchen, 11 p.m., on the phone. Sarah was asleep upstairs. Brandon's voice, casual, confident. Once the old bat's officially off the deed, we're clear. I've got a buyer lined up. $1.8 million, cash deal. We'll net $400,000 after fees. Split it, and we're both walking away clean. A pause, then, Sarah, she's sweet, but clueless. Thinks we're building a life. I'll file for divorce after the sale. She gets nothing. Prenup's airtight. And the mother-in-law? She's got early-stage dementia, according to the paperwork I filed. Court won't believe a word she says. I stopped breathing. Margaret's face went white. Dementia paperwork? I whispered. Tom pulled up another document. He filed a petition 3 weeks ago claiming you're mentally incompetent. Used a doctor's signature, also forged. If it goes through, he becomes your legal conservator, controls everything. I felt the room spin. This wasn't just theft. This was a complete dismantling of my life. We have him, Margaret said quietly. Criminal fraud, elder abuse, forgery, attempted conservatorship fraud. He's looking at 10 to 15 years. But first, I said, we get Sarah out. I called Sarah, kept my voice steady. Honey, can you come over? I need to talk to you about something. It's important. Mom, I'm really busy. Please, it's about your father, something I found in his papers. That got her. I'll be there in an hour. When Sarah arrived, Margaret and Tom were already there. Sarah looked confused, then frightened. Mom, what's going on? Who are these people? Sit down, sweetie, I said. There's something you need to see. We showed her everything. The forged deeds, the debt, the credit cards in her name, the surveillance footage. She watched Brandon's phone call in silence. When it ended, she sat very still. That's not... He wouldn't... Her voice broke. We're married. He loves me. Sarah, Margaret said gently. He's been planning this since before the wedding. The house was never about building a life with you. It was about stealing your mother's money. Sarah started crying. Not the pretty crying from the proposal. Ugly, gut-wrenching sobs. I'm so stupid, she gasped. So stupid. Dad always said... He always warned me about men like this, and I didn't listen. I didn't listen. I held her, let her cry. When she finally stopped, Her eyes were red but clear. "What do we do?" she asked. "We fight," I said. "Together." Sarah went home that night. She had to. If Brandon suspected anything, he'd move the money, disappear. We needed him to think everything was fine. But 2 days later, Sarah called me at 3 a.m. "Mom," she whispered, "I found more. In his safe. Come now. He's passed out drunk." I arrived with Tom. Sarah met us at the door, shaking, holding a folder. Inside, copies of the forged deeds. Bank transfer records showing money moving from Sarah's accounts to offshore accounts. A prenuptial agreement Sarah had never seen, one that left her with nothing in case of divorce. And a handwritten note, dated 3 months before they met. Target, Sarah Hayes. Age 29, teacher, recently lost father. Mother is Eleanor Hayes, widow, 1M plus assets, emotionally vulnerable. Approach at coffee shop on Bannock. She volunteers there Tuesdays. Sarah read it and vomited in the kitchen sink. "He planned it," she whispered. "All of it. He hunted me." I held her while she sobbed. Tom photographed everything. "We have enough," he said quietly. "More than enough." We filed the lawsuit on a Monday. Tom, Margaret, and I arrived at the house at 6 a.m. with a sheriff's deputy and a locksmith. The charges: multiple counts of forgery, elder financial abuse, identity theft, fraud, attempted conservatorship fraud, wire fraud, the civil suit, quiet title action to restore property ownership, $2 million in damages, immediate restraining order. Brandon answered the door in pajamas, confused. Then he saw the deputy. "Brandon Cole," the deputy said, "you're being served with a lawsuit and a restraining order. You have 72 hours to vacate this property. Any contact with Eleanor Hayes or Sarah Hayes Cole constitutes a violation." Brandon's face went from confusion to rage. "You can't do this! This is my house! I bought it!" "No," I said, stepping forward. "I bought it. For my daughter. And you stole it." Sarah appeared behind me. Brandon's expression changed. Fear, then calculation, then desperate charm. "Babe," he said, "this is a misunderstanding. Your mom's confused. Remember, I told you she was having memory issues." "I heard the recording," Sarah said quietly. "The one where you called my mother a bat and me clueless." Brandon's face went pale. He looked at me. "You bugged my house?" "My house," I corrected. "And yes, every word, every plan, every lie." He lunged forward. The deputy stepped between us. "Sir, you need to calm down. You have 72 hours. After that, you'll be arrested for trespassing." Brandon backed away, shaking. "You'll regret this. All of you. I'll sue for defamation. For harassment." "With what money?" Tom asked mildly. "You're $340,000 in debt. Your real estate license is suspended as of this morning, and the IRS is very interested in those offshore accounts." Brandon looked at each of us. Then he smiled, a cold, empty smile. "You think you've won?" he said. "But you have no idea what I'm capable of." "We know exactly what you're capable of," Margaret said. "That's why you're finished." Brandon hired a lawyer, a slick one from Seattle, expensive, the kind who wears Italian suits and smiles like a shark. The trial took 6 months. 6 months of depositions, hearings, motions. Brandon claimed I was senile, that I'd given him the property willingly, that Sarah was lying to get her hands on my money. His lawyer painted me as a bitter old woman who couldn't accept that her daughter had moved on. He suggested Sarah was manipulating me, that she'd planted the cameras herself. It might have worked, except for the handwritten note. The one where Brandon outlined his plan to target Sarah. And the phone recording, his voice unmistakable. Once the old bat's off the deed. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Brandon was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. The civil judgment, $2.3 million in damages, far more than he could ever pay, but it meant every asset he had went to Sarah and me. His real estate license permanently revoked, his reputation destroyed. When the verdict was read, Sarah grabbed my hand. She didn't cry. She just squeezed tight. Brandon was let out in handcuffs. He looked at us one last time. No charm, no smile, just rage. "This isn't over," he mouthed, but it was. The house went back to Sarah, solely to Sarah. No joint ownership, no vulnerability. She lived there for 6 months, then told me she couldn't stand it. "Every room reminds me of him," she said, "of how stupid I was." "You weren't stupid," I told her. "You were trusting. That's different." We sold it for $1.7 million. Sarah used the money to pay off the debts Brandon had hidden in her name, then put the rest in a trust Margaret set up, one that couldn't be touched by anyone but Sarah. Sarah moved back in with me for a year. We healed together, went to therapy together, learned that trusting people doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. And one Tuesday, at the coffee shop where Brandon had first targeted her, Sarah met Michael Chen. Not Tom the investigator, his nephew, a carpenter. Quiet, kind, drove a 15-year-old truck, wore work boots with sawdust on them. Their first date was hiking. Their second was building a bookshelf in my garage. Their third was dinner at a diner, coffee and pie. 6 months later, he proposed with a ring he'd made himself. Wood inlay, silver band, no diamond. "Diamonds are marketing," he said. "This is real," Sarah cried. Then she laughed. "My dad would have loved you." We launched the David Hayes Memorial Scholarship with $1.2 million. Everything David had left me, everything I'd tried to give Sarah, everything Brandon had tried to steal. The fund supports first-generation college students in Idaho studying architecture, construction, or education. Full tuition, room, board, and books. The first recipient was a single mother named Maria, 32 years old, 2 kids, studying architecture at Boise State. She'd worked 3 jobs to save enough for 1 semester. At the award ceremony, she cried when she read David's letter, the one I'd framed, the one warning about money and trust. "He sounds like he understood," she said, "what it's like to build something from nothing." "He did," I said, "and he'd want you to have this." Sarah and Michael got married in my backyard. 20 guests, wildflowers. A friend officiated. Michael's Uncle Tom walked Sarah down the aisle since David couldn't. The total cost, $800. It was perfect. At the reception, folding tables, homemade food, string lights, Michael's father gave a toast. "My son told me he found a woman who knows the difference between price and value, who trusts carefully but loves completely. Who knows that real wealth isn't in bank accounts? It's in the people who show up when everything goes wrong." Everyone clapped. Sarah blushed. Michael kissed her. I stood on the porch, watching them dance to music from someone's phone. A year after the wedding, I got a letter. Prison postmark. No return address, but I knew. I almost threw it away. But curiosity won. Brandon's handwriting. Neat. Calculated. "Eleanor, I've had a lot of time to think. 12 years is a long time. At first I was angry. Furious that you'd ruined everything. But my therapist here says anger is a secondary emotion. Underneath is fear, shame, regret. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know, I wasn't always like this. I grew up poor, really poor. The kind where you eat ketchup sandwiches and pretend it's dinner. I watched my mother work 3 jobs and still lose our house. I promised myself I'd never be vulnerable like that. I'd never depend on anyone. I'd take control. And somewhere along the way, control became manipulation. Security became greed. And I stopped seeing people as people. Sarah was beautiful and kind, and I convinced myself I deserved her. You were generous, and I convinced myself you were a target. I was wrong. About everything. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that what you taught me, that trust is earned, not stolen, is something I'm finally learning. I hope Sarah's happy. I hope you're at peace. Brandon. I read it twice. Then I put it in David's safe, next to the original deed. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Money doesn't change who you are. It reveals what was always there. Brandon was always a con man. Prison didn't change that. It just gave him a new angle. Redemption. But maybe that was okay. Maybe even con men deserve a chance to become something else. Or maybe I was just getting soft in my old age. Sarah had a baby, a girl. They named her Eleanor. She has David's eyes and Sarah's smile and Michael's calm disposition. She's perfect. I hold her in the same rocking chair where I held Sarah 30 years ago. The chair David built from reclaimed barnwood, the summer we found out we were pregnant. Mom, Sarah says, watching us. Do you ever regret it? Giving me that money? I think about it, really think. No, I say, because it taught us both something important. That love isn't measured in dollars. That trust has to be earned. That family protects each other. And that widows can be badass, Sarah adds, smiling. I laugh. That too. Little Eleanor yawns. Her tiny hand wraps around my finger. What will you tell her? Sarah asks. When she's old enough to understand? The truth, I say. That her great-grandfather built something real with his hands and his heart. That her grandmother fought to protect it. And that she comes from a line of people who know the difference between price and value. Outside, Michael is building a treehouse. He measures twice, cuts once, just like David taught me 40 years ago. The scholarship fund has helped 47 students so far. Maria graduated last year, top of her class. She's designing affordable housing in Boise. The $1.2 million David left me? It's in those buildings, in those students, in the life Sarah's building with Michael. Not in a mansion that was never about love. Not in the hands of a man who mistook manipulation for intelligence. But in roots. Deep, strong, unshakable roots. I'm 71 now, 3 years since the trial. 3 years since I learned that sometimes the greatest threat comes from the people you welcome into your home. But also 3 years of healing. 3 years of watching Sarah become the woman David always knew she could be. Tom Chen, the investigator who saved us, became a friend. He stops by for coffee every Thursday. We talk about his cases, about life, about the fact that at 68 and 62, we're both too old and too stubborn to be anything but honest. Margaret Klein retired last year. Her going away gift to me, a file labeled Eleanor Hayes, Badass Grandmother. Inside, every document from the case, every victory, every moment I chose to fight instead of surrender. For when you forget, she wrote in the card, that you're stronger than you think. Brandon gets out in 9 years, early release for good behavior. Sarah asked me if I'm afraid. If I worry he'll come back, try again. No, I told her, because he already lost. He lost the moment he underestimated a 68-year-old widow who'd spent 47 years learning from the best man she ever knew. David's voice in my head has gotten quieter over the years, but it's still there, in moments of doubt, in moments of fear. Money's just a tool, Ellie. What matters is what you build with it. We built a scholarship that will outlast us both. We built a family that knows its worth. And we built a life that proves the only thing more powerful than money is the courage to protect what really matters. Little Eleanor is 3 now. Yesterday, she asked me why I have so many pictures of the man with the smile. That's your great-grandpa David, I told her. He taught me everything I know about building things that last. Did he build our house? She asked. No, sweetheart. He built something better. He built a family that takes care of each other, no matter what. She thought about that, serious in the way only 3-year-olds can be. I want to build things too, she said. Then you will, I told her, because you come from builders. This is Eleanor Hayes, 68 years old when my husband died, 71 now and still standing. I lost $1.2 million to a con man. Then I took it back and turned it into something he could never steal. Legacy, purpose, love. Money doesn't change who you are. It reveals what was always there. Brandon showed greed. Sarah showed strength. David showed wisdom. And I showed that a widow in her late 60s can still fight like hell and win. If you're facing something similar, if someone you trusted has betrayed you, if you're wondering whether you're strong enough to fight back, let me tell you something. You are. Age doesn't diminish courage. Loss doesn't erase strength. And trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, just more carefully with better foundations. The mansion Brandon tried to steal, Sarah sold it. She and Michael built a smaller house on land they bought themselves. 1,800 square feet, enough for their family, not a penny more than they needed. Eleanor has her own room, painted yellow like sunshine. Michael built her a window seat where she reads books about buildings and bridges. She's 3 years old, and she already knows that the best things in life can't be bought, borrowed, or stolen. They have to be built. One choice at a time, one day at a time, one generation at a time. This is my story, the story of how I lost $1.2 million to a con man, and how I got something far more valuable in return, the knowledge that I can survive anything, the proof that family is worth fighting for, and the certainty that David was right all along. Give them roots, not wings, not mansions, not money, not things that can be taken, but roots, deep, strong, unshakable roots, the kind that weather any storm, the kind that grow stronger with time, the kind that last. I'm 71 years old. I've been a wife, a widow, a mother, a grandmother. I've been rich, poor, devastated, and victorious. And I've learned that the only thing money reveals is who you've always been. Brandon was always a thief. David was always a builder. Sarah was always resilient. And me? I was always stronger than anyone, including myself, gave me credit for. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. When your gut says something's wrong, trust it. When you're facing the fight of your life, don't back down, because you're stronger than you think, braver than you know, and absolutely capable of protecting what matters most. I keep David's letter in a frame now, on my desk, where I can see it every day. Money's just a tool, Ellie. What matters is what you build with it. We built a legacy, we built a family, we built a future, and no con man, no matter how charming, could ever take that away.